I got a pile of calipers on the bench, and today we're going to tackle a front disc brake conversion for your early A-body and how to rebuild the 4-piston Kelsey-Hayes brake calipers. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, next to an engine swap, I think front disc brake conversions from drum brakes to disc brakes is probably the single largest or single most done upgrade people do to their vehicles. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk you through all of the parts you need for a 4-piston Kelsey-Hayes front disc brake upgrade for your vehicle. We're going to get into what you need to do this disc brake conversion to factory components, and I'm going to put a complete parts list down in the description so y'all can follow along as to what you need to get and what you need to source out. Now in 1966, the kit was available to be installed with the original single pot master cylinder with a proportioning valve that gets mounted on this inner fender well. The master cylinder comes with an extension to give it a little more reservoir capacity, and it's all part of the installation kit. You can also see down there there's a residual check valve for the rear brakes, and that's all fine. Previous owner of this car researched all the period correct pieces and put it together. We all know that having a dual pot master cylinder where it isolates front brakes and rear brakes is a much safer option should you for some reason lose brake fluid, you blow a line out, you have that capacity to stop either with the fronts or the rears depending. And the proportioning valve fits a little further down on the frame rail. Going to this master cylinder is pretty much an acceptable upgrade for an older vehicle. It's a safety item. I would do it if I was doing the conversion. The disc brake spindles are specific to the car, A-body, and the calipers bolt directly to these brackets. Lower ball joint bolts directly to these brackets. What's nice about going with the factory setup is that you can use your original upper control arms and lower control arms. The ball joint is the same size for this spindle as it is for 9-inch or 10-inch brakes. Not a big deal. So when you purchase these used, you want to make sure you get left and a right, and you want to inspect all your bearing surfaces, your seal surfaces, make sure nothing is scored, deeply worn out, bad grooves, that kind of stuff. Check your threads for your spindle nut, and make sure everything is pretty much looking good. You're going to need a pair of left and right dust shields. You're going to need brake rotors and hubs, but more importantly the hub. So here's your typical brake rotor, Kelsey-Hayes, and it's a two-piece design. You have the brake rotor, the disc itself, and the hub where your bearings go, and they are separated through the middle here. Your wheel studs get pressed in from the back all the way through. You're thinking to yourself, they're not available. Yes, they are. I'll put the part number in the description. You can get them right on Rock Auto. So you can have someone press these out, get your new rotors, press them right into the hub, and you're good to go. Wheel bearings and seals. When you go looking for those parts, you're going to not find a specific listing for cars with disc brakes. But the part numbers for the 10-inch drum brakes, the same ones. You're going to need calipers. So this is your Kelsey-Hayes 4-piston fixed caliper, and it's got several components to it. These calipers are two pieces bolted together. You have your inner half and your outer half. You have your flexible brake hose, and you have a transition line from this bracket right here that bolts to the caliper when you bolt it onto the spindle, and it comes up and feeds the caliper at the bottom. At the top, you're going to have your bleeder valve and a transition tube from one side to the other. That's how you get the fluid all the way through. There's no passages that go between the two halves. There are two styles of brake pad silencers to keep the pads in. You have this one here, it bolts to the top of the caliper, and it has these little spring-loaded deals on the top that push kind of right on the top of the brake pad, keeps them pushed down. Common ones are these little clips where they just one bolts at one end, one bolts at the other, push on the ends of the caliper, and they do the same thing. What is available, what's not available? Brake rotors are available, which is great. Brake pads, they're available, which you need those too. For the conversion, you're also going to need a lower ball joint. This is a lower ball joint off of a drum brake car, 10-inch drums. And the bolts go through the ball joint, through the spindle, inside the backing plate, and a nut holds it all together. So it bolts straight through. The ball joint for a disc brake car is much bigger in diameter, and it just bolts straight to the back side of the spindle. No nut, doesn't come through all the way here. It's important that when you're replacing you're doing the brake swap, that you get the correct lower ball joints so you can bolt them together when you do the whole reassembly time. What else is available? The Kelsey-Hayes style calipers. Yes, they are available as a complete rebuilt or even new unit, and you can get those also on Rock Auto. But you can also get the seal kit. You can get a complete seal kit, rebuild kit. It's going to come with the inner seals for the pistons and the outer dust shields. It's going to come with 2 packs of these, one for a left, one for a right, and you're going to get a set of spring clips. Again, you're going to want to swap out your master cylinder, and you're going to want to swap out your metering block, proportioning valve, distribution block. If you have drum brakes all the way around, you simply have a block, just pushes pressure through, and that's it. But disc brake cars have a proportioning valve, so it has a little residual pressure for the rear drums only, and proportions the amount of pressure front and back. And it's set at the factory. There are adjustable proportioning valves that you can buy. Has a little adjustment on it, so you can change the bias back and forth however you choose. Preference is to get one for say 67, 68, 69 car. It's not like the one we have in the 65 Barracuda, which is correct for that year for the installation, but it's a more modern version of that, like what I have here in red. I've found them at a couple of manufacturers, and again, I'll put all that stuff down in the description. But now I'm going to show you how to identify and work with the Kelsey-Hayes calipers themselves, what to look for in a rebuild. Let's get into that. Here we have a whole bunch of calipers, and there are a couple differences between some of these, and I'm going to walk you through what they are. Basically, for 1965 and 1966, they made one style of caliper housing. In 67 and up, they changed it. How to tell the difference? This one right here is a 1965 or 66 housing, and it has an outside retainer ring for the dust boot, which is removable. Okay, there's a bit of machining going on around here so that this can go right on there, and this style of dust boot, what goes on over top of it. So you would put the seal inside first for your piston seal, then piston would go in, then you would put this on, whereas this side here would fit around the ring, which is already pressed on like it is here, and then the outer part of the dust boot fits into the groove on your piston. And that's for 65, 67. Excuse me, 65 and 66. 67 and up, you see there's a lot less machining around here. There's no ring on there. I mean, you can't even put one on. And the dust boot is different. It's got this extra kind of a groove on there. And there's an extra groove in the bore. Remember, 65, 66, one groove. 67 and up, two grooves. So you would put the inner seal in first. You would fit this dust boot in next. And essentially you're giving the caliper and piston two seals to seal on. you'd fit this through the dust boot and push through till it finally goes all the way past the inner seal. So when you're sourcing the parts and you're finding your calipers, you may come across the two different styles. My kit that I have for the dust seals has them for 67 and up. So I'm going to use these particular housings. But I took these apart because I was looking at all the pistons and I wanted to start seeing which set of pistons I have that are in really good shape. Now, the other thing I found out when I did that, some pistons have a groove on the top and some don't. And they face each other this way and they push on the brake pad. But it seems that one is a little taller. Now, why is that? On all these calipers that I have that have grooves in them, some of them do, some of them don't. All the ones that do are on the inside of the caliper. Okay, this is what I found out as the possible reasoning why. If you can see, this is the outside, this is the inside. And if you take a look, the distance from the bore to the slot here where the rotor would ride, and do the same here on the inside, there's a greater distance here. So it makes sense that the pistons, they're about maybe 1/8 of an inch longer, would go on this side, on the inside, to equal out the distance to the rotor. So remember that when you're disassembling your calipers and you've got pistons that have these grooves, they go to the inside bracket, and your other ones without the groove, they're shorter, they go to the outside bracket. So I have a Kelsey-Hayes service manual, which is very helpful. Now it shows when you're going to pull the pistons out that there's a very specific tool to use, which is great. And I think that that's assuming that you're working on a set of calipers where they've been servicing them on the car and they've been functional for many years and not sitting on a shelf or in a bin or somebody's barn collecting rust for a long time, because I tried to duplicate that kind of a tool with what I had and they aren't moving. Now, I had used on a couple of the other ones channel locks, and of course it does put grooves into the piston, which you really don't want. It does sit outside of the caliper and only really is on the groove for the dust boot, but I want to try and get some of these pistons out without having to groove them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little compressed air. Got one side blocked off. I'm going to put a couple of C-clamps on here just to keep these from I'm going to put a couple of C-clamps on here just to keep them from launching, and try a little compressed air and see what happens. So let's try a little compressed air. Now, I've had these soaking for overnight with, internally. Oh, maybe this one moved. I don't know. I know this one is probably bottomed out. I tried pushing them in with some channel locks and they don't budge at all. This is the hardest part of servicing these old calipers, is getting the pistons out without damaging them. Sometimes you just gotta think outside the box. Yeah, okay, here's what we did. Functioning master cylinder, a front brake line, because this end fits right in the fitting, an extra piece of brake line which fits in that end just nicely, into the caliper, and a couple of C-clamps, and I've already popped this one. A little pressure. Let me set that one down a little bit. Loosen this one up, and let's see what's going to happen. Beautiful. The reason why we're not going to reuse this piston is because it's flaked. Now, the pistons are not stainless steel. They're chrome plated steel. And the chrome on this one has flaked off. There's no way a seal is going to do anything on all of this. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about this one. But I do want to take this out to check the bore to see if it's okay. I'm guessing by looking at this, maybe not. Maybe we'll just move on to another piece and continue. Well, we've got all of our parts here, all lined up. Now we're going to clean everything up, give it a good inspection. I'm going to clean up all of these pistons, a few others, see where we're at, see what they all look like truly, and then we'll clean out some of these bores on these. I've already started on that one there. I think I'm going to use this pair here, but I want to clean up these ones anyway just to see what they look like. This is probably not going to get used, but I want to clean this up anyway because that's where that one really nasty piston came out of. So let's clean some stuff up and go from there. I got this caliper half cleaned up, and I don't know. I think it's just a little bit too pitted in this bore. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use this one. Not horrible, but I don't think it matters much, to be honest, because you're not really worried about anything sealing against that. You're worried about really where the grooves are, where your seals sit. You want good pistons. Okay, so I've cleaned up these pistons, and these are probably the ones I'm going to use. The ones that I used the pliers on, I'm going to have to dress these up a little bit. This one is good. This one's good. This one's got a couple of marks on it, but all the way around, it's good. This one I thought was going to be great until I found one little mark there, one little blemish. And yeah, I know that's going to expand, get worse over time, and it's far enough down where I don't like it. You know, we know they're chrome plated. Once that chrome starts coming off, it's not going to stop, and that's going to deteriorate. I'm not going to use that one. These two are okay. Again, I got a few marks on them. I can dress them up. These ones, they're shot. I mean, I really got heavy on the pliers on that one. This one's not horrible, but it's got dents and dings on it. It's flattened out there. Yeah, I'm not going to go with those. So these are paperweights. These are maybes. That one's that's nice. It's a nice paperweight. These ones I'm going to go with for one caliper. Now, I do have other calipers I can try and take apart today. I'll do that another time. You can get pistons. They're also available. Let me finish cleaning up another half, and we'll start assembling one of the calipers. Well, these are all cleaned up. Gave them a nice coat of paint, and we're ready to assemble the calipers. So stay. I'm going to do the outside first, and we got our seals, we have our new dust boots here ready to go. Pistons are all cleaned up, the ones I'm going to use. Any nicks were addressed, everything was cleaned up nicely, so we're just going to start with the inner seals, coat them in a little bit of a clean brake fluid. Just kind of rubbing around there. Get them coated, and then set them into the inner ring, working our way around slowly, and just making sure they're not rolled over and that they're seated properly in those grooves. There, that was easy. Let's get this one. Coat them nicely. Get in here. Come on, there we go. And make sure they're seated nice, correctly, and not rolled at all. Okay, there we go. Now the dust boots, those got to go in now. And the Kelsey-Hayes book says don't put any, it doesn't say to put any brake fluid on these, so I'm not going to. Although there is a little bit already residual on there. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. Get these in place. It's a little bit harder because you can't really see if it's in or not, but oh, perfect. That's in. Let's get this one. Oh, that happened a lot easier than I thought. Perfect. All right, pistons. I'm going to coat these with a little bit of the fluid. And then we will first get it through the dust boot. This is the tricky part, getting it through the dust boot without pulling the dust boot out of the caliper. You just got to take your time with it. Come on now. There we go. And now we're going to push it into the past the inner seal. Keep it as square as you can. There we go. And then make sure that the dust boot is in the groove of your piston. There. See? It's not so hard. Yeah, we need a little bit more. Let's pour a little on. There we go. Whoops. And there you have it, the completely rebuilt, reassembled Kelsey-Hayes 4-piston brake caliper. And one other thing, when you're sourcing your used parts, make sure, even if you're going to buy new calipers, make sure you get these brackets because they bolt with the caliper to the spindle and help locate your brake hoses coming from the car to the physical brake lines here that transfer up into the caliper itself. These are important to have. And the lines, this line here and this line here, you're going to need to get new ones of those, because we know when you try and take them off of a used caliper, they're just going to be gone. But they are available too, so I'll put them down in the description as well. Well, there you have it. That's your complete parts list and rebuilding of these calipers, so you can do a disc brake swap from front drums to disc brakes. It's not that hard. I mean, if you can get the pistons and the kits, then that's great. You got the calipers, you can rebuild them. If they're not in great shape, you can get remanufactured ones or brand new ones. I mean, that company is making them. Like I said, the links for everything is going to be in the list. Well, not the links. I'm going to put the part numbers in there. You can find them separately, no matter what vendor you go to, because you'll be going to, various online retailers, hitting the Amazon, everything, to gather up your parts list. But as long as you get the part numbers of the manufacturers, you can do this entire list and do the factory brakes for your car. One thing I did figure out, looking at the Kelsey-Hayes book, is that the difference between these brake pad clips that go on here is that these ones are for the earlier calipers, 65 and 66, where the other clips, where are they? Got a pile of them over here. These ones are for 67 and up. So these would be the upgrade clips, and I'll put these on anyway, but it's not like anybody's ever going to see these. But if you wanted them for a 100% correct, factory accurate installation, these would be right for a 65 or a 66. There you go. And that's it. Oh, well, there's another thing. You may want to do a power disc brake upgrade when you're doing the whole thing. So if you get a hold of these are the vacuum diaphragm and the whole bracket assembly, and then you have your extra vacuum tank that gets mounted on the fender well on the left side of the car. If you get a hold of these two, great. This is going to give you that power brakes that gives you a little more ease of hitting on the pedal. Now, if you get one of these, send it out, get it rebuilt. You're going to have to. You got the rubbers here, you got the diaphragm, everything here. You're going to want it right for sure. So get that rebuilt. The master cylinder, if you don't go with power brakes, the master cylinder comes in a couple of different bore sizes. I'll put the part number in the list for a non-powered master cylinder. So if you just want to do the brakes, the calipers, and put it in a master cylinder without the power, the smaller diameter will give you a little more pressure to the brakes. The larger size is normally a 1 inch or even a little bigger. You may feel like you're stepping on a rock, and you might need to really push, put a lot of pressure on that. So make sure you get the smaller bore size if you just want to do a non-powered installation. Again, that part number, it's in the list. Did I miss anything? It's not complicated. You just got to know what parts to get. The parts manuals from the factory they don't give you all the numbers you need, which is not great. It's been 50, 60 years later, a lot of parts manufacturers started dropping these parts off of their inventories. So it's getting harder and harder to find everything you need to do this job. But it's kind of come full circle to a point, right? There is a manufacturer out there making brand new Kelsey-Hayes calipers, which is great. And the other thing too, these pistons, if you can't find the pistons, if you know a machinist, these aren't hard to make. They're pretty simple. You get some round stainless steel stock, and they could turn these out on a lathe for you pretty quick. Matter of fact, when I did Red's brakes years ago, my brother-in-law made me a set. He's a machinist. He has been for years. Had some scrap stock laying around. He said, "I'll just make you a set," and he did, which I thank him for. They installed just like the factory ones, and they haven't given me any problems since. So, knock on wood. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you coming back and checking this out. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you next time.